Good evening, Mr. DeAndrea. Could you do the roll call, please?
I apologize in advance as I learn individuals' names, so I hope to get everyone's name proper. Board Member Elizabeth Callahan.
Here.
Board Member Nubia Duval Wilson.
Here.
Board Member Regina Eckert.
Here.
Board Member Bill Guilford.
Here.
Board Member Will Meyer.
Here.
Board Member Shina Sackett Gable.
Here.
Board President Kwai Telsford. Board Member Aaron Vadlamani.
Here.
And Board Member Caitlin Whitletter.
Here.
Thank you.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please take notice that the adequate notice of this meeting had been provided in the following manner. A written notice was sent from the Office of the Secretary of the Board at 2:30 on January 5th, 2024. The said notice was sent via email to Maplewood and South Orange Township clerks and the editors of the News Record, Star Ledger, Tap into Soma, and the Village Green. Whereas the Senator Byron M. Bayer Open Public Meetings Act requires all meetings of South Orange Maplewood Board of Education to be held in public, New Jersey NJSA 10.4.12b sets forth 9 types of matters that can be lawfully be discussed in executive session without public being present to attend. Whereas the board has determined that one issue is permitted by NJSA 10.4-12b to be discussed without public in attendance, and all discussions discussed during the exec session will be held on Thursday, September 26, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. And whereas the 9 exceptions to open the open public meetings outlined in NJSA 10-2-4b are listed below. And next to each exception is a box that will be marked when issues to be privately discussed fall within that exception. After each exception is really, what is this? I'm sorry, I'm confused. Okay, maybe where additional information that will disclose as much information about the discussion as possible without undermining the purpose of the exception shall be written. I'm going to skip to read all 9.
No, I don't think
No.
you have to read all.
Okay, good.
You can just
So
say
I can check this. Okay, read the ones that have an X. Okay. Number 1, any matter by express provision of federal law, state statute, or rule of court shall be rendered confidential or excluded from public discussion. The nature of this matter described as specifically as possible without undermining the need for confidentiality is attorney-client privilege, HIB reporting, and personnel. Item number 4, any collective bargaining agreement on terms and conditions which are proposed for inclusion in any collective bargaining agreement, including the negotiation of terms and conditions with employees or representatives of employees of the public body. Whereas the length of the executive session is estimated to be 45 minutes, after which the public meeting of the board shall reconvene immediately. Now, therefore, it be resolved, the South Orange Maplewood Board of Education will go into executive session for the above stated reasons only, and be it further resolved that the board hereby declares that its discussion of the aforementioned subject will be made public at a time when the public's interest in disclosure is greater than any privacy or governmental interest in being protected from disclosure. Make a resolution to move to executive session. Second, thank you, Board Member Callahan. All in favor? Unanimous. Now we go into exec session. Thanks.
And I apologize, since I don't know individuals, when you make a motion, if you can just please announce your name so I know who made the motion. So You made the motion? All right. Thank you so much.
Do you want me to?
start, I'd like to make a motion for make approval for the special meeting minutes on August 21st, 2024, and the executive session and regular meeting minutes for August 29th, 2024. Do I have a second? Thank you, Board Member Callahan. All in favor? All right, we'll start with the student rep update from Oliver Nesson and Asa Glassman.
Hi to all. I hope everyone's start to the year has gone smoothly. My name is Oliver Nesson. I'm a senior at Columbia, marking my 13th year in the district, and I will be the new student rep to the Board of Education for the 24 to 25 term, alongside returning Representative Asa Glassman. Asa and I have held meetings with administrators to hear the plans that are being laid out for the coming school year, as well as possible solutions to issues that have grown in our district in recent years. As the year began, problems with guidance were at the forefront of many students' minds, with the release of schedules coming only a week before the first day of school. As these schedules finally released, problems were ubiquitous, with many students having gaps in their schedules, being double scheduled in the same periods, and not being able to take the classes that they registered for. I want to give a big thank you to the guidance counselors who worked tirelessly to fix these problems. With most of these significant issues being resolved within 8 school days. However, these scheduling errors that were relegated to the counselors and teachers are still being felt across the student body, especially among our many students with additional learning needs, some of whom are taking classes without a co-teacher when their needs require that level of support from the school. Both our guidance counselors and our students deserve a better level of organization so that the simple issues can be worked out and the focus can move to real guidance for students in their high school years and planning for their lives after Columbia. IDs are once again declared to be a requirement for students in Columbia. However, this is a promise that has been uttered to Columbia students many times, leading students to view the policy as nothing more than a joke. I'm hopeful that this time the promise will be kept and our security will be made a priority. The negotiations now being held between the board and the teachers union cannot be overlooked by the student body, both for the immediate and future effects that they will have on students. Teachers' salaries need to be made a priority for our district. Although many of the teachers of our district possess a true passion for education, they are still people who need to be compensated for all the work that they do. The teacher retention rates and performance boosts due to raises have been shown to be correlated with higher student performance. In addition, the district's upcoming requirements will need to be filled by new teachers who will have no incentive to come to our district unless they are attracted by competitive wages. If we are nothing else, we will be a place of learning. Both the board and SOMAN need to ensure that the students are not forgotten in their disputes as the senior class approaches deadlines for higher education amidst chaos, spurring anxieties from students and parents alike. I hope that this district can overcome its internal struggles to become an environment where students can truly thrive, and I look forward to a productive year with all of you. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to move public speaks up. Can I have a second? Thank you, Board Member Callahan. All in favor? All right, we'll move up public speaks. Are there any students that would like to speak? I'll first give the board president statement. Hold on. Very slow today. The school board meeting is a business meeting in public and not a meeting with the public. Oftentimes it may... Oh. No. I'm just confused. Sorry. Thank you for coming in person and dialing in by phone this evening. The South Orange Maplewood Board of Education certainly respects that you've taken the time out of your busy day to address the board at tonight's meeting. We value involvement in our school district, and we are eager to hear what you have to say. The board does have time limits by policy, and it will be enforcing those to enable as many people to speak as possible this evening. Each individual will be given 2 minutes to speak. Please do your best to stay within the time afforded to you. The first public comment period is usually limited to 1 hour, and the second public comment period may be limited to 30 minutes. All input shared with the Board of Education is taken very seriously and will inform future deliberations and work by the Board of Education and its committees. I'd first like to ask, do we have any students here that would like to speak? Yes, come forward. Yeah.
Whenever you're ready.
All right.
Whenever you're ready. Whenever you're ready.
You can pull it down.
Oh.
Yeah, thank you.
My name is Gabriel Taro. I'm a junior at Columbia High School, and I would like to say that I wish I was shocked. I wish I was shocked, but this is more than expected now. It's something that I've come to know will happen over and over and over again, because this board does not seem to have any compassion for its teachers. Asking for a living wage is not greedy. It is a human right. Yeah. And if there was, as you say, a shortage of money, then how come we've just spent millions of dollars on student comments, which while are nice, nobody asked for? And a new library, which again, nobody asked for because nobody used the old library, which you would know if you actually talked to the students. Yep. And that brings us to the main problem. There is no communication. If there were communication, and yes, this is another topic I'd like to speak on, our stage would have been fixed by now. We may be the only school on the East Coast that has gone into this year without a working auditorium, and it is despicable. It has gutted it is going to gut our programs. People are not going to join our arts programs if there is no outlet for them to be creative and perform. Programs like the orchestra program, which I'm a member of, the choir program, which I'm a member of, the musical, and special dance, Shakespeare Festival, and on so many more that I'm not naming, need this stage fixed. This is not something that can be pushed off into the future. This needs to happen now. And so I ask once again, is it greedy to demand what we deserve? Is it greedy to ask for a living wage? Is it greedy to ask for a functioning stage? Is it greedy to ask for a competent Board of Education? Is it? I await your reply. No, he's not. Thank you.
All right. Actually, looking at the list, I thought that we'd have a much longer list of speakers, so we'll actually have that for each person gets 3 minutes. So the first person will be Anina Rosen.
Good evening. I'm Anina Rawson, mother of 2 CHS students. I'm following up on the issue from this past spring when the Director of Guidance and Counseling position was eliminated, citing budget cuts. As you may recall, I wrote to you and spoke publicly about my concern for your proposed elimination of this position. The importance of this role in developing the master schedule, among many other responsibilities that directly support our students, cannot be overstated, as CHS stakeholders have now learned the hard way. At the June 6th Board of Ed meeting, in response to letters of concern about the master schedule, Dr. Gilbert spent nearly 5 minutes outlining the plans for the guidance department. Specifically, he conveyed that the high school principal, at the time Mr. Pedro, would manage the master schedule while 2 vice principals learned how to do it. He said, quote, "The elimination of this position does not impact the creation of the schedule for school year 24-25, end quote. What he neglected to say was that he had already entered into a contract with a consultant to be paid $42,000 to create the master schedule. The plan he described was pure fiction. Why wasn't the hiring of a consultant to do the master schedule communicated to the public at any time over the course of 3 months? Was it because after citing the budget for the elimination of this important position, Dr. Gilbert had gone ahead and spent 37% of Mr. Vecchione's annual salary on this outside consultant and had allocated other parts of it for stipends for existing counselors to take on a lead role? This makes no sense and is disingenuous. When the community learned about the consultant only last week due to an Oprah filing, it was clear that Dr. Gilbert had lied to the public. While not required to bring an expenditure of this amount to a BOE vote, in a follow-up by the Village Green on September 22nd, Dr. Telsford reported that, quote, "The acting superintendent informed the board as a whole about the expenditure," end quote. So what the president is saying on behalf of the BOE is that you all knew that Dr. Gilbert was lying to the public, and you were okay with that. That is unacceptable and antithetical to your espoused dedication to transparency. Our students deserve better than having the adults in charge lie and obfuscate to avoid accountability. Thank you.
Next, we have Andrea Alexander.
Good evening. I'm Andrea Alexander, a 24-year resident of South Orange, the parent of a 23 Columbia grad and a current senior at Columbia. I sketched out yesterday what I was going to say tonight, only to be faced with another ridiculous district's challenge just this morning. My senior's guidance counselor was let go in June, and he finally met his new counselor today, only to learn she's leaving next week. I immediately emailed Mr. Sanchez, who responded that they will have a new counselor lined up, so it'll all be fine. This will be his third guidance counselor in as many months, while having 3 college applications due in 19 days. I adore Frank, but when the district tells me something will be fine, experience has taught me usually it isn't. And the current counselor is leaving for more money and less chaos, which I guess is the perfect segue into what I wanted to initially talk about, our teachers. My kids have been in district since they were in kindergarten. In my 15 years, I have seen 6 superintendents, 3 different principals during elementary school, and 3 principals during the high school, and now 4 guidance counselors in 4 years. Yet almost all of the elementary teachers who taught my kids are still here. The consistency and stability that the teachers provide is unmatched at the administration level, and we are going to lose them if we don't get our act together, just like the guidance counselor. Our teachers are the heartbeat of our district. In addition to actually teaching, in elementary, they are the surrogate parents. In the middle school, they help our kids develop independence. And in high school, they become mentors, advisors, and even friends. And I can't believe we're here again. In my view, this is so much more than percentages and dollar amounts. It's about how they are valued. It's unfair to the teachers to have this drag out for many months on the heels of the last negotiation. It's exhausting for them, and it's exhausting for the community. In my professional life, I have sat through many negotiations, and I know that when there is a critical impasse, parties will lock themselves in a room and commit to staying around the clock until it is resolved. It can be done if both sides show up and are willing. So lock yourselves in a room and commit to getting it done before we have a mass exodus of teachers, either through retirement or resignations. And all of you with kids in the district should be very afraid of losing our very best teachers in the next several years. And as for money, during the May 9th meeting, Board Member Gifford made an emergency motion to request a forensics accountant that was denied. 4 months later, where are we with that? If the district can find $42,000 to hire a master scheduler, which should be handled in-house, they can find the money to do a forensic accounting. My kids have gotten an amazing education and have done exceptionally well, as many of these teachers can attest to, in spite of the district and only because of the teachers. It is time that we show them the same level of respect that they show our kids every single day. Thank you.
Next, we have Jen Spiegler. Jen Spiegler. Jen Spiegler.
Hi, I'm Jen Spiegler. I wasn't prepared to come tonight, but after what's going on recently, I decided it was important. I hate doing this. I'm shaking, my blood pressure is high. But it's so important for all of these people here. I just want you to think for a second. Do you remember what your parent, aunt, or teacher taught you? Basic learnings. Treat others as you would like to be treated. Be respectful, transparent, and honest. The only valuable commodity in this district are teachers. That's right. Yep. Our students are feeling the tension, not only the seniors, but certainly the seniors. The teachers love what they do, and even more their students. This is a really unfortunate situation. They can't pay their electric bills with the granola bars that our supportive HSA and families provide to merely express our sincere appreciation, and the respect, the lack of respect that some of us are giving them is really awful. I trust you are all here to come to a respectful solution. Their children, who they go home to at night, not the ones that they teach every day, are scared for them and worried. As I was outside, I overheard a few teachers talking to their children because they're not home tonight. They're making sure they're doing their homework, taking their shower, or simply consoling them that they are safe and they are doing the right thing. As one teacher said, whose child marched with him today, "It's okay, I'm getting in good trouble." Right. And just a friendly reminder, since some BOE members have stated that we're just making noise, I'm gonna make a little more noise since I'm here tonight. The need for a marching band truck still exists. It's like the football team playing without a football. And what is that date the CHS auditorium will be functioning for our community, our students, school groups, and assemblies? Just curious what the plan is. It's October. There are no concerts scheduled this winter because they can't be on the stage. There are cast and crew meetings happening with no idea of what the venue will be. If there's a plan, please share with this dedicated community who has offered to help and support. And lastly, we're in a financial disaster. Who's overseeing our finances while no business administrator or assistant business administrator exists? The impact of our teacher community is our silver lining here. And if we don't make a change to keep them here, we will be completely lost. Thank you.
Next, we have Ileana Castillo. Ileana Castillo.
Good evening, guys. Sure don't want to be on your side right now. My name is Ileana Castillo. I'm a parent of 2 children currently in the school district, Columbia High School and Maplewood Middle School, and I'm a teacher, but in another school district. I'm here tonight because I fully support the teachers. We all know lately it hasn't been easy for anyone, but I want to highlight just how tough it's been for our teachers. They're the ones shaping the future, yet their hard work often goes unnoticed. These past few years have been difficult for teachers, dealing with pandemic, chaos in the district, and so many other difficult conditions that have challenged them to their limits. Many of them are parents themselves, juggling their responsibilities at home and in the classroom. Yet they show up every day fully committed to our children's educations and well-being. It's more than just a job to them, it's a calling. I see them go above and beyond, not just teaching, but also supporting our kids as mentors and role models. Even when they're exhausted, they keep showing up, always thinking about what's best for their students. I know there's a lot we can always improve, but tonight, let's focus on our teachers. Their passion, their resilience, and their dedications. They deserve our support, our respect, and to know that we're standing with them. To all our teachers, really, thank you. And many of us really, believe it or not, appreciate you. In other words, just give them what they want. They really deserve it. Thank you.
Next, we have Leah Van Dornick.
Good evening. My name is Leah Van Dornick. I am a resident of Maplewood, a single parent to 4 children, the youngest of whom is now a senior at CHS, and I'm the music teacher at Seth Boyden. So, I know we like numbers, so here are my numbers. This is my 11th year teaching in this district and 15th overall. My salary here is $65,685. So if we round that up, and then if we include the $1,129 stipend I receive for doing bus duty, which is a third of actually a full stipend, and based on my experience, really should come with additional hazard pay, the total goes up to $66,800. So the threshold for free and reduced lunch in New Jersey this year for a household of 4 is $69,888. I mean, I make $3,000 less than the threshold, and I should be getting free reduced lunch. But you know why I'm not? Because my kids work multiple jobs, which is required as all part of the income. So I work multiple jobs, they work multiple jobs, we're all working hard. This is great. Thank you. I value this community. I respect my colleagues. I love my students, and I'm proud of the work that I do. I refuse to acquiesce to divisive missives that are intent on pitting members of this collective community, even neighbors, against each other. Does this district really want to reflect the current political climate in our discourse? Is this really the example we want to set for our kids? I don't understand this. As of this afternoon, I counted there were 56 unfilled positions in this district. But in Resolution 4668 on tonight's agenda, you've laid out your goals for the district. Before I describe the first 2, I just also wanted to add, since I have this little extra time, this $42,000 that you spent for the scheduling snafu, did you know that that is the total of my take-home pay for an entire year?
Yeah.
Back to Resolution 4668. The first 2 goals for the district are described this way. Number 1, we will prepare our students for college and career through the design of learning experiences that will prepare them to become leaders, designers, problem solvers, and innovators. And 2, we will nurture responsible, fulfilled, and successful global citizens through developing an awareness of their interconnectedness with the world and learning skills that can help them contribute to change. Fantastic goals, by the way. But who is this we that you speak of? You know, the people who will be in the classrooms and the hallways actually making it happen? That's right, it's us, and we are worth it.
Yes, we are.
Next, we have Jesse Hine. Next, we have Jesse Hine.
You're making me follow that, Leah. Hi, I'm Jesse Hine, 5th grade teacher at Seth Boyden and a SOMEA member. This is the 3rd contract negotiation I've been through since I started working here, and honestly, probably the most disheartening one, and it's a pretty high bar. In the past week or so, our new superintendent has resorted to tactics that are downright insulting to me and my colleagues. Before even meeting the entire staff face-to-face, there have been attempts to gaslight and vilify our union, to bust the union by turning community members against individual teachers. Nice to meet you. Misleading communications have been sent out, including a false SOMEA salary guide shared by a board member to make the community believe that our compensation was greater than the 2 districts he selected. According to the guide he posted this morning, I should be making about $8,000 more than my current frozen salary. That's not a mistake. It's a blatant disregard for facts and a slap in the face to every teacher who has worked tirelessly for our students. This year, I'm managing a class 50% larger than my previous one. I'm in an inclusion classroom for the first time in my career without a special education co-teacher. I've poured my heart and soul into ensuring my students succeed so they don't feel those deficiencies. All the while, my salary is frozen and letters are sent out to the community labeling me as greedy. Wow. And how many other SOMEA members have similar stories? A budget shortfall is not our problem. Years of mismanaging funds is not our fault. We refuse to accept less because of someone else's failures. Where was the concern when upper administration received big raises this year? Where were their sacrifices when my colleagues were being fired and transferred involuntarily? It's time to stop brushing off the realities we face. Teachers deserve respect, fair treatment, and fair pay. We demand real action and accountability. We deserve better.
Next, we have Rocio Lopez. Rocio Lopez.
My name is Rocio Lopez. I am a resident of Maplewood. I actually moved here because I thought it was the right thing to do after teaching here for so many years. I thought I loved the community, and I thought that it was the best thing to do to be here with all of us. I am also the president of SOMEA. And I am here today to tell you that after 23 years, I am finally fed up with the level of hypocrisy, lies, mistreatment, and abuse we receive by our SOMEA members. Okay? Are we tired? Are we tired? Recent communications from a board member and the superintendent demonstrate a clear intent to mislead the public. Let's start saying that SOMEA's offer of 6, 4.5, and 4.5 did not include longevity. So stop with the lies. Nor we ever say that that was our final offer. What we did instead is we decided not to respond anymore without an offer that it was made in good faith. That's what we did. So stop with the lies. One post that got my attention was a crazy, post that it said that SOMEA's salaries proposal will lead to nearly 5% tax increases. This is deliberate and unethical distortion of the facts. The board's 2024-2025 appropriations budget already allocates $138 million for salaries, including provisions for increases. SOMEA current salaries, so you all know, are frozen at $65 million. So I don't want to hear anymore that SOMEA salaries are all the money. It's only $65 million. And any future increase is still under negotiation. The communication falsely suggests that agreeing to a fair contract for teachers will drive the district into financial ruin. So rather than working in good faith toward a fair solution, the communications uses fear to divide the community and pit residents against teachers. These tactics are a disservice for our SOMA, and I don't know if you know, we call it SOMA and MAPSO for the new kids, community. There is no budget crisis like you call it. Pretty much what we can see is that these failed negotiations are simply the product of that desired punish to SOMEA. This budget chooses to allocate money elsewhere instead of compensating our staff. If the boards want to compensate the staff, it can find the money to do so. Look how fast you found the $42,000. That actually is $84 because you are going to pay again. But by example, the board budget, extraordinary aid for 2024, you wanted to find money, I found you money. For 2024, 2023, 2024, you budget $1 million for extraordinary aid. Yet our district received close to $5 million this past June. Almost $1.5 million more than budget. Do you see? Okay? So now let me say this. If a 1% increase in teacher salaries corresponds to $651,000 approximately, right? then 2% equals 1.3 million approximately, right? Which is less than the money, not budget, that you got, and I'm gonna say exactly the number, $1,482,681 that the district received in extraordinary aid 3 months ago. So you have 1.5 million that you received extra 2 or 3 months ago that you're saying you don't have the money for us. So give us a contract.
Next we have,
What was the number, Rosia, extraordinary aid?
1.5 million, almost you have extra.
next we have Alexandra Capucci. Alexandra Capucci.
Drop the mic. You want the money? You got the money.
Alexandra Capucci.
Hello, everyone. So, I know the board knows my name, but it's time for you to see my face. My name is Alexandra Capucci, and I'm the CHS AP art teacher. One of our chants tonight here has been no more praise, we deserve a raise. And I know here in this room, I've received, and quite deservedly so, a lot of praise. I'm the 2024 NJ Teen Art Educator of the Year. I've worked with community leaders to highlight the work of our students in professional galleries, resulting in them having some of the highest opening nights on record. In the wake of last year's budget crisis, I created an art department fundraiser with Soma boosters to mitigate the funding loss for my department. And in the past 2 years, I've grown the AP art program 146%. I've had a student receive the runner-up for the Governor's Award in Art. I've had another student get a perfect AP Art score, and I had another student get the Scholastic American Vision Award, one of 50 in the entire country in 2 years of being here. So I'm here to ask, what else must I do? What more praise can I accrue for you to not live at poverty level? The average cost of rent in New Jersey is $2,500 a month, not including utilities. And that is over 60% of my pay. And like many teachers here, I qualify for subsidized housing assistance, low-income assistance. I can't afford to save up for a home. I can't afford to start a family. And I was going to ask if that mattered to you, but clearly after hearing the testimony of one of our teachers and mothers of the community, it's clear that it doesn't. I love my school. I love its students. I love their parents who fought for me when they were afraid that you were gonna fire me because I was the last one hired last year. I love growing the arts program, and yes, I do in fact love your praise, but it's not enough. We're supposed to be a partnership. And so tonight you see me now, and you know my face, and you can come say hi to me in D105 at CHS, because I am here to sit at the table with you, to sit with my colleagues, with you. It's time for more. Thank you.
We'll move on to our online public speak. We have James McGregor.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Okay. All right. Can you see me? Okay. Great. Thank you. Hi, my name is James McGregor. I live in South Orange, and I have 2 children who are students at. Wait, can you hear me? The clock hasn't started. I just want to check.
I can hear you.
Okay. All right. I have 2 kids who are students at SOMS and CHS. Like so many other folks tonight, I'm here to talk to you about the teachers union contract. I think that my family has had a fairly common experience in the South Orange Maplewood School District. I've been a parent of students in the district for over 9 years. In that time, we've had our fair share of ups and downs. But regardless of anything else that's been happening, there has always been a bright spot for our family, which is our amazing teachers. Our teachers have definitely been, for us, the glue that holds the district together. We owe it to our teachers. We owe it to our entire community to stand with them the way they've stood by us. And right now, while they're working under an expired agreement, our teachers are telling you what they need, a fair contract. Please listen to our teachers. Thank you.
Next, we have Thayer Joshua.
Good evening. My name is Thayer Joshua. I'm from South Orange, New Jersey, and I have 2 kids in our school district. I'm here tonight to give some context about how union president negotiates, and sometimes it's against the best interests of our membership and our community. From where I sit on the outside this time, and I'm glad I'm on the outside this time, it appears as though the district has negotiated in good faith. Now, it's worth noting that everyone who represents the district is new to negotiations, where everyone from Samea's team remains the same, and yet, just like 2.5 years ago, there's been a declaration of impasse. When we completed negotiations in March of 2022, March 25th at 6:30 a.m., I was tired, but proud of the deal that we had reached with Samea to increase salaries over 13% in 3 years. And I should clarify, Samea's leadership determines the salaries of their members, not the Board of Education. The board authorizes the lump sum, and Samea distributes it amongst its members as they see fit. Now you can Google PERC, P-E-R-C, Samea 2022 to see what happened shortly after that deal was reached. When we agreed that there would be layoffs as a part of that deal, Samea then sued to say, sorry about those layoffs, you can't really do that. This lawsuit is why Samea members experienced a delay in receiving their retro pay for the 21-22 school year, because the money that was held up in litigation by their leader. Before the PERC hearing, Samea's president proposed a different solution, $550,000 in severance pay for the outsourced employees, even though there was $580,000 allocated for the back pay. Basically, she tried to have her cake and eat it too. Eventually, the mediator agreed with the district and told Samea's president that she could not renege on a deal she had just made. That background is why I'm dismayed at what I've heard this evening. It appears some of these same tactics are being used again by Samea's leadership this evening, this evening. Samea's president has decided to weaponize her power by trying to force the district to do her bidding instead of being a true partner. But it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. I remember when I was the president of the board trying to just enforce a meeting, they said I was a bully. But from where I sit, trying to extort $550,000 after the fact is actual bullying. But it doesn't have to be this way. I know negotiations are hard, but they don't have to be dramatic knockdown, drag-out fights. That is when the community loses trust in both institutions. You should focus more on working instead of winning. Because the only winning happens, the only winning here is when our students feel supported by our teachers and when our teachers feel supported by the district. Negotiations should be confidential, but without secrets. And as Q-Tip says, please put the egos to the side and get off of those head trips. Now, I hope somebody will attend the planned October 8th October 8th negotiations meeting and return to the bargaining table in good faith and negotiate a good deal for their members, our taxpayers, and most importantly, our students. Board members, thank you for your time, and as always for your service. Have a good evening, and I really hope,
Excuse me.
that you get home.
Excuse me,
and I
please
hope-
do not interrupt anyone speaking. Excuse me. There's the door. Please do not interrupt anyone speaking.
And I hope
Let us
that you
please
get
be
home.
polite to each other. Thank you.
And I hope that you get home at a decent hour. A special thanks to Mrs. Whitletter and Duval Wilson, who would not shut that booing down, even though I made this crowd not boo you a couple of months ago. Much appreciated. Have a wonderful night, everybody.
Whoa. Bye. Bye. Yeah.
I'm going to say one quick thing. I don't know what the history of public comment in this district. We don't call out people. We don't. We set a model for our kids and students. We don't call out people on no matter who they are. We don't. And when we come to the mic, and I appreciate many of you who came up, you came up with a solution. But we don't attack others. We don't attack Union President. Rocio, can you let me speak? We don't attack union or association presidents. We don't attack parents. We don't attack board members. We don't attack students. I agree with you. We're not in disagreement. Let's just keep those ground rules in mind. I beg of you. All for hearing everyone. And for those of you who did speak tonight, thank you. I know you have much better things to do with your time than come here. You have family, you have friends. Truly appreciated that you came.
So now we'll move on to the superintendent's update.
So what I did hear a lot is keep negotiations going. We're all for that. We're also all for a healthy, competitive increase, plain and simple. And trust me, this is now my 14th year as a superintendent. I've been on boards who don't want to pay. We're in a good group right here. You guys have a good group on your side. We have a good group on our side. Let's get back to the table and work it out. I could only speak professionally from my relationship with your association president and your executive team, which has been wonderful since I've gotten here. And that's been all of 90 days. 90 days. And I sit here and maybe I don't know if it's me being naive or me just part of some really bad negotiations throughout my career. I'm pretty positive about this one. I just was at a faculty meeting the other day saying, I do believe we're going to come back to the table. I do believe we will settle on something. And I do believe that. And it's going to be competitive and a healthy increase. I believe in taking care, please. When we first came in, we talked about family. Throughout my career, that's how I look at districts I am in, as family. And when this board started the negotiations, we had 3 non-negotiables. Kids first, a healthy competitive increase, and take care of our family. Those are the 3 non-negotiables we had. And we remind ourselves of the 3 non-negotiables every time we meet. So I can only speak from this side. I can speak slightly from talking with your executive committee. We all want this to be solved. We all want our teachers paid well. We want to be competitive as a district. As I've said to this board, 1/3 of you are retiring in the next 5 to 7 years, the most out of any district in this county. And if we're not competitive in offering salaries, we're going to be in some trouble. It's very clear. You're right. We are in trouble. So how are we going to change that narrative? Because if you're not tired of being the butt of jokes, I can tell you I am after 91 days. I am. I'm tired of hearing the word "we are unique," which is code for dysfunctional. I am tired of hearing it. I hear it from families, I hear it from staff, I hear it from admin, that SOMSD is just unique. We are not unique. It is dysfunction that we need to fix as leaders. That means this board, our SLT, your leadership needs to fix it. Unless you want to go on another 20 years of being the butt of jokes. We have a choice. We can change the narrative around this district. We can only do that if the leadership works collectively. I'm not putting this on teachers, because teachers are up to their knees in the classroom. But the leaderships of this district can change that narrative. And that's the work that we need to do. We have a lot of great energies in this district, whether it's families, community, teachers, admin. We have to synergize those energies so we move in the right direction. And 5 years from now, we're not looking at 40% rate of not being able to fill teacher spots. Because as I believe the young man noted, and if you've looked at recent Department of Labor surveys, it is now teachers that are the hardest spot to fill on the East Coast. It is no longer healthcare or nurses. Teachers have now moved into that top spot. And my expectation is they're going to be in that top spot for the next 5 to 7 years, just like nurses were for the last 5 to 7 years, unless we choose to do something. And I will put out there that one of those things is collectively getting together as a leadership, talking to assembly people, senators, and talking about the aid and the cap and going down the Trenton, collectively. Because not only SOMSD, but every other school district cannot survive with a 2% cap and the current aid districts like us are receiving. So when we talk about synergizing energy, I'm all for getting a team together and putting some pressure on some folks so we change that. I'm all for, let's get back to the table. We've got good people at that table. But let's change the narrative. Please. That's the work we have to do. I talked too much already. I'll say it next meeting. Thank you all for coming out. It's important.
All right, I'll give my update. Thank you all for coming tonight. I understand that for our teachers, you began the school year in a position I never wanted you to be in, one without a contract. I'll keep this brief as I have a 5-year-old daughter at home and will be leaving shortly after this. But I want to be here tonight to share some thoughts, both as a board member and as a former student. First, I ask that we tone down the rhetoric. There have been many mischaracterizations and false statements made about the board. Claims that we don't respect teachers, that we refuse to meet with you, that we have contempt for educators, or that someone said excellent at the proposed impasse. One statement likely directed at me suggests that we only see teachers as data points. When I hear these statements, I feel hurt because I see this district as my extended family, the place where I grew up. Many of you talk about your students as your kids, and in that sense, I am one of your kids. I want you to be paid well, and I have nothing but respect for our educators. One of our former union presidents was Paula Bethia. I went to daycare at her mother's home when I was 3. And I was thrilled to see her as a guidance counselor at South Orange Middle. One of our most recent CHS Hall of Famers was Mike Geegan. He was my saxophone teacher. My sister was a TA for his father at CHS. I remember names like Anthony Cecilia, now an assistant principal at South Mountain. I remember when he first started student teaching here, but mostly because I was in his mother's class, Miss Cecilia, in her chemistry class. And if you do not know me, you should know I love all my science teachers. The year before I joined the board, I missed the retirement of Dr. Bennett Hirschfield, the teacher who encouraged me to pursue a PhD. This past June, I was proud to honor the retirement of Vanessa Carney, the athletic trainer who helped me whenever I was injured. And I can only think fondly of Miss Harrigan, the Clinton school nurse who is still there today. She took care of me when I was sick, but mostly my sister because she was sick all the time. I could go on, but I share these personal connections to make one point. None of you are just data points to me. Some of you are my classmates. Others shape the person that I am. Many of you shape the person that I am today. I return to this community not only because I love it, but because the education I received here, and that's all thanks to you. I don't believe we should be at an impasse. We need to get back to the negotiating table. As far as the numbers and data that has been shared publicly, data is important, but data should be part of the discussion that we mutually share, not for exchanges in public. When I joined the board, I was happy to support the raise our teachers received, which was the largest in the state in over a decade. We know that competitive salaries are key to attracting new teachers, but we lose the opportunity to reach the agreement when we're not at the negotiating table. At the heart of negotiations, though, it's more than just numbers. It's about building relationships that will serve us in future discussions. When I think of Patrice, I remember she's a Trini just like me. Shira, you're an alum just like me. These connections are invaluable additions to the relationships we should cultivate so that in 3 years, our next contract discussions go more smoothly. I may not be sitting here then, but I believe our community is tired of turning every issue into a crisis. Let's get back to basics. I came back to this community because I love it, and it's where I want to raise my family. With that, I'm off to be with my 5-year-old daughter, my 5-day-old daughter, sorry. I'm very confused, who I hope will continue the legacy of being one of your kids. Thank you. And next will be the business administrator's update.
At this point, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Spies Architectural Group. They're going to give you a small presentation on the status of your referendum and your capital projects.
You're right. They're controlling the PowerPoint. Yeah, I talked to Keith. Okay. Yeah. Where's your key gonna symbol? What's that? What's the tell key? Next slide? Yeah. Okay.
Good evening. You on?
Yeah, you're good.
Ready? Okay. Keith, you can go ahead to the next slide. So just some quick introductions. Scott Downey, I'm a principal with the Spiesel Group.
Todd Waskowitz, Associate Principal with Spiesel Group.
And you see the picture up there for Kathy Tartaglia. So Kathy couldn't be here tonight, but she is with Epic Management. Kathy and Epic serve as the project managers for the capital improvement plan, the long-range facility plan projects that have been implemented. Next. So just by way of a quick overview, when the process started back in 2017-18, there was a fairly in-depth assessment. There was a list of needs that was identified, and the highest priority of those were set aside to be advanced under this building program. We'll get into where that stands, but just in way of overview, obviously the buildings in the district had aged. There were a lot of infrastructure and upgrades that were needed to maintain their condition and improve them. The building plan program focused on eliminating the modulars that were at the elementary schools, which had aged and become problematic, adding on to the elementary schools to handle capacity and other needs in the district, as well as make substantial improvements at the middle schools and the high school. Now that said, obviously a program like this doesn't address everything, and buildings continue to age as they operate. So the district is undertaking and will continue to undertake other repairs and other work that will be ongoing, as it is in any district with several schools. Next.
All right, I'd like to get into an overall status with each of the improvements planned at each of the schools, but collectively, we're about a little greater than 80% complete of the overall bond referendum. A bit of a milestone was achieved with the start of school this summer. All the elementary schools are now complete or completing. As with construction, there's always the last couple things, and we're working through those now. And actively, we've got both of the middle schools under construction at various stages and continued construction at Columbia High School. Underhill Sports Complex, that was completed in the spring of '23, and any improvements at Ritter, that's currently in design, pending with some applications. So we're going to go quickly through each school to highlight some of the features. So Clinton Elementary, it received a secure entry vestibule. And I'm going to kind of hit on some of these because a lot of these were repeated initiatives across all the schools. So one of those being a secure entrance vestibule, as well as a faculty privacy room and a faculty restroom and an all-gender restroom. So you'll see those components across each of the schools, as well as some infrastructure upgrades. Clinton, for instance, got 12 new classrooms, as well as some building management systems, etc. Next, Keith. Delia Bolden. Again, the secure vestibule, 5 new classrooms, faculty privacy room, and a new playground. And there you see an interior view of the classrooms. What you see kind of in the distance is the typical approach for all of the classrooms across the district. It's an individual HVAC unit in each classroom that controls obviously the temperature as well as humidity, fresh air componentry. So it's a very streamlined approach that the district has elected to proceed with. You'll see that as a common theme through all of the photos, as well as a new fire alarm. That was common through all the schools as well. Over to Seth Boyden, it received the full gamut of improvements. One thing we'd like to point out in this photo is just we tried to embrace as much natural light into these classrooms, the new classrooms, as much as possible. Also, Seth Boyden also received an exterior basketball court as well, which I have seen the community enjoy and the student members there. Keith, you want to go to the next one, please? Scott, for a minute, could you talk about how each edition's slightly different but fits in?
Yeah, so while the interior improvements we tried to build fairly consistently across the schools, each one of the schools obviously is in a neighborhood. Each one of the schools has an architectural character to it, so the additions are different, purposely designed that way to try and fit each addition in with the character of that building and its surroundings.
All right. You'll see new HVAC listed on many of the schools. That's improvements to not only the classrooms, but the common spaces, your auditoriums, your gyms, cafeterias. Go ahead, Keith. At Tuscan School, there was 4 new classrooms, removal of 4 portable classrooms here, and this image is an illustration of how that looks differently than Seth Boyden, but both fit in very well with their each respective neighborhood. So you'll find that throughout all of the schools. Go ahead, Keith. I want to pause here for a minute. A bit of my personal favorite. Side note, I was reviewing this with the team, and hopefully you can see it, but it's the colored glass that we used, the district elected to incorporate in each of the schools. But the students and the teacher use the wall to as a part of their education. I'll share one little quote. It's a bit out there, but one of our designers said his vision was that the colored glass would bring the wall to life. But he said, wow, the students, they brought life to the wall. And that was kind of hit me there. And I'm like, that's what it's about. So that was a very personally rewarding situation there. So there's little moments like that through each of the schools. So go ahead, Keith. South Mountain. Now that entrance has some common themes with Clinton as well. Obviously its own themes, but that was 12 new classrooms there over 3 floors. We also had a new elevator in there. So we flow accessibly through the building as well. There you see the photo of the three-story courtyard. Obviously, the expanse of the glass, it's quite interesting as the light reflects in through the different ways. Very exciting space. I believe they also have a greenhouse now in that courtyard as well. Good, Keith? At South Mountain Annex, we had the secure vestibule, renovated the main office as well, and 4 new classrooms, as well as we replaced a parking lot and made some exterior improvements as well. Good, Keith? So again, you'll see the same set up through the classrooms. It's very good. We use different colors to customize it, so each school can have its own personality. All right, over to Marshall, which is in the completing stages right now. 16 new classrooms. That's the largest addition in the district. So we're bringing that online right now, but the students are in using the spaces as we speak. Good, Keith? An interior view of one of the new classrooms. We're working on finishing up the building management system. Now, each school received a new building management system that allows the facility to observe, monitor, make sure everything's working properly with the mechanical systems throughout the buildings and throughout the district. So, go ahead, Keith. Montrose Elementary. Photos were a little bit more challenging, but you get the essence. We created a secure vestibule, replaced the boilers in there, so that will be good for the next 50 years, and put a new faculty privacy room as well. South Orange Middle School. We are in the preparation stages for everything. Contractor is on board, materials have been ordered. We're going to start using some of the times during the breaks to do some infrastructure improvements, but most of the improvements are scheduled to be started and completed during the next summer of 25. Maplewood Middle School, we got a great jump. The contractor and Epic put together a great plan for Maplewood Middle School. They have, sorry, Keith, you can go ahead. There we go. Much the same improvements as South Orange Middle, but we have a lot of the groundwork in place, and that's tracking to completion, probably in the spring, but definitely by next summer. And Columbia High School, I'm sure everyone may have seen, but we have most of the roof replaced. We've cut back drastically on the leaks. We have 5 of the 10 new science labs completed and occupied right now. The Commons is scheduled to be coming online towards the end of this year, with the Media Center coming online early in 25. Overall, we plan to have the construction complete at the high school by the end of the summer of 25. And in the middle lower image there, you get a little sneak peek of the Commons, along with a rendering of where we're going, as well as the nurses' suite and a new science lab. Okay, Keith? And Underhill Sports Complex, as mentioned before, was completed prior to spring. New turf field, new grandstands, new press box. Does the board have any questions?
So I do want to comment, and it's probably one of the best jobs I've seen, how the exterior of the schools, how the new blends in with the old. It's probably one of the best jobs that I've seen in many capital projects I've been part of. So kudos to you guys.
Good.
Well, thank you for that presentation. And it's hard because I feel like the photos don't always do it justice, but we board members got to tour, and it was just really wonderful to see all the hard work. And I know in particular, I'd love for you to expand a little bit more on the guidance suite, because when I walked through it, that rendering doesn't do it justice. I mean, it really is beautiful. I can't wait to see it when it's done. But I know that there's supposed to be like a cafe. There's other glass glass, like study rooms. Then there's like a whole nother area. So, I mean, I feel like I'm saying it for you, but if there are other things you could expand on, because I feel like the community doesn't really have a good sense of that space and what's going to be there. And after the tour, I was really excited to see what our students are getting and what they actually deserve as well. Whether you like to use a library or not, from the last student, it really is an amazing multi-use space.
Yeah, so part of what drove, some of the development process that was worked out with the district folks on those types of spaces, the library, the commons, education is evolving. It always does, right? The high school is an absolute jewel of a building. It's a beautiful building. It's been around for a very long time. It's, an edifice in the town. But within that building, education needs to evolve also. So those spaces are specifically designed to provide a flexibility that some of the traditional classrooms can't provide. The ability for students to work with each other, the ability for small groups, large groups, multiple classrooms to come together, or just informal activities to occur. It's tough to do that in many older school buildings, which were designed in a different age, right? So those spaces, including the media center and some of the other improvements at the school, will, it will, what we see when things like that are done is that there's a development process that happens. So when the space opens, the teachers and the students will find new and interesting ways to utilize those spaces and put them to use, as well as the ideas that we and your teams had going in with the design. So it should be very exciting.
Just going to follow up on that. So I appreciate you gave us a preview of this in our last FFT meeting. And I wanted to highlight, as we've mentioned, I think in past meetings, this project has moved forward with remarkably few change orders overall. We've kept pretty close to the contract. The one piece that has been sort of the exception in that regard has been the work at Columbia, and we've talked about the pretty unique, but the circumstances that you folks have found every time you opened up a wall to do more work. And that sort of dovetails not only with looking at some of the change orders that we've approved, which of course were within the bond, but nonetheless, but we're also talking about separate work with working on the Columbia Auditorium and stage, just not within your purview, but it relates to the same building. Could you just share with us overall a little bit more of the condition that you've found Columbia in and the work you've had to do to get this project done?
Sure. Overall, it was, with a building of that age, it's quite expansive and conditions are going to vary, but we suspected that the amount of water damage inside of the walls was actually more than what we thought it was. And due to the complications of the construction pipes, it comes very methodical as you have to work through. So we were cognizant to make sure to remove any of the damage and stop any further damage from occurring. And then we strategically brought it back. So we've had a couple of those complications. It's not always best when I get the phone call from the contractor as he starts a new area, but we discover, make a plan and we get through it. So it's a work in progress.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting that, the district has taken the right approach with regard to these issues when they've arisen, right? It's not just, well, what's the quickest fix and let's move on. It's, yeah, we have a condition here. We now know it's there. Let's address it right. Let's make sure that we are truly renewing this building for many decades into the future. And, in 30 years, when they open up a wall, they won't have those problems. So, that approach is the right approach, but that approach has also led to us doing some additional work that, wasn't anticipated at the outset.
So I'm a little embarrassed asking this question, but what is a secure vestibule?
No embarrassment necessary. So, one of the things that has changed in schools over the years is how we handle security in the design of buildings, right? So, gone are the days where you can open the door and just drop in for a visit and walk in. So a secure vestibule provides a point where entrance and access to the building can be carefully controlled. By example, I arrive at the building, I have to buzz in, I have to say who I am. The person operating that door can decide, looking at me, is it a nice enough jacket? Should I be let in, so to speak, right? But they have the opportunity to assess the person at the door. I'm then let into the vestibule, and they're given another opportunity to assess me as more information might be given, ID might be scanned, so forth. So the secure vestibule is set up to support that kind of scrutiny for security reasons. And it just means that the school is given the ability to have a higher level of control over who and how people enter the building to make sure that they're as careful as they need to be.
There's a couple other things. First,
Sorry,
I wanted to just...
I should, instead of just pointing, I should say, well, Board Member Meyer, for the record.
Thank you. So I wanted to first just name check I appreciate that we have gotten done not only the security vestibule, but also the several other security updates throughout all of our buildings. In light of, the environment that we're currently in, it has been great as we've gotten to tour through to see the ways that, though perhaps imperceptible, we've made all of the classrooms and buildings safer. I did want to highlight, and I will surely regret asking this question, but we have Ritzer Field on here on the progress update. And as we know, that's been sort of a touch point in the community as we've discussed plans for it. But I just wanted to, we discussed briefly in our last committee meeting the steps that are being undertaken at this time. I wonder if you would just recap those briefly for the community.
Sure.
Yes. In May of this year, the application was made to the DEP for an LOI, which is a letter of interpretation, to get clarification that Ritzer Fields may or may not have any protected environment. That has been accepted by the DEP, and we're in administrative review currently. They don't have a strict time frame to review, but typically it's 4 to 6 months until we get a letter back.
Yeah, so once that process concludes, we'll be able to know whether there are any special considerations that need to be taken into mind as the design moves forward, and then we will work with the district to assess what in fact should go there, how it should be designed, and advance it forward.
So I did just send all the board members, Nubia, you asked for a little breakdown of the media center. I gave every board member a more specific map of that, and we could share that at the next meeting. But you got a tutoring center, you got a conference center, a mobile conference center with closable walls that can be divided into two. You've got an artifact center to really dedicate to the history of the school. Podcast room, quiet room, tech room. It really is built for the 21st century.
Thank you. No other questions. This is really good. I mean, things look really nice. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just in conclusion of my report, I look forward to working with the board members for my time here. I'm excited to be here and to help the district until you make your transition to your permanent business administrator. I did have 2 meetings already with your construction team. They are thorough, they are efficient, they're looking at it at the best interest of making sure this project moves forward in the appropriate manner. So I'm looking forward to being here and working with them and helping the district make sure that everything goes smoothly. So thank you.
So I'd like to welcome Mr. DeAndrea. I mean, welcome. And anyone has any questions for him for the construction operator? Okay. No. Sure, go ahead.
Not a question, but I just wanted to clarify. I was going to do this in my readout, but he's come on as a part-time interim BA. So I don't know if that, thank you for the proper introduction to him, and welcome, and thank you for taking on the work.
I believe we have no other presentations at this point, do we? No. Okay, moving on. Next up is, actually, before we go on, there are two things I wanted to point out. Number one is the board president, Kwavi Telesford, he had a new baby, Jeremiah Pan Telesford, 5 days back, and that's why he came in here and he had to leave very early. As you could see, he was sleep deprived but extremely happy and smiling. I mean, that is what new dads are supposed to be like. So, I mean, he was to point on that. And the second thing is, if you've noticed, we're all wearing these very fancy T-shirts and sweatshirts. I mean, the board has started a tradition, started by board member Whitleder out here, and who wearing school T-shirts to show solidarity with our students and celebrate school openings. So we have representation all the way from Montrose Preschool to Columbia High School and all the other schools in between. So I think that's pretty cool. I mean, I'm glad we do it. And so that's the two things. So now we move on to committee readouts. Board Member Callahan.
Yes, thank you. All right. So the Special Services Committee met on September 11th, 2024. We began at 6:30 and adjourned at 7:30. It was myself, board members Meyer and Whitletter, Superintendent Bing, Dr. Jessa Maria. We were all in attendance, and we started the meeting with Beth Cosentino, the president of CPAC, who began the meeting with some insights from our members at CPAC. We discussed a variety of topics with them. Those included improving beginning of year communication, ensuring accuracy of website information for families. We discussed our 504 process and timeline, the need for additional standard operating procedures in special education, and some different staffing suggestions, as well as inclusion in classroom needs and paraprofessional training and fading. This was our first committee meeting where Dr. Jessa Maria was there, and so also exciting that beginning on 10/1, when we officially welcome our last supervisor, we will in fact have a fully staffed special services department, and we are really, really excited about that at the leadership level. We are excited to welcome her into this role as the Assistant Superintendent of Special Services, and excited to see where her expertise and vision takes us. We talked about improving internal communication with principals, CST members, teachers, and emphasizing the shifts in the paraprofessional roles and their impact on least restrictive environment, and underscoring the importance of student independence. We talked about some of the issues with paraprofessionals and transportation aides, how the district was able to identify those, and the steps that they are taking to ensure compliance and ameliorate those issues. We also discussed our special services profile, both the federal monitoring that occurred as well as the board commissioned audit. We reviewed what we've done internally so far to socialize those, and then discussed the presentations that will be forthcoming and the release of those results to the public, which are forthcoming in October, but I will leave it to Superintendent Bing to announce those. And then we talked about ICS classrooms, the district working on transitioning to a model where teachers move between classrooms instead of moving students. Progress is being made on hiring for various roles. We have upcoming interviews and hiring updates planned in the future. And some of the achievements are shifting to underscoring student independence within and across the department, improved collaboration with CPAC by having them in meetings, and shifting this committee from ad hoc to standing. Our next meeting has changed, but I believe is October 10th at 6:30. But I could have that wrong. I have the 15th. We will have the special services profile will be presented on October 15th. I believe our meeting is the 11th, but I would have to double check. That's our next meeting. But if anyone has any questions about this committee, please let me know. Yeah.
So, I mean, the first thing is just a comment. I mean, I'm actually very happy that the Special Services Committee is now a full peer committee, a permanent committee, along with as important to us as CNI and FFT and personnel and policy, because we just, with about 15 to 20% of our student population needing special services, I think it's important that we do that. So that's awesome. The other question I have about the meeting itself is, will a parent from the district, like the CPAC president, will someone like that always be joining a meeting?
The way we've structured it thus far has been that a representative from CPAC has joined us for the first 15 to 20 minutes, and they either ahead of time or during the meeting share with us a list of things that topics they would like to discuss, and then we've been discussing them in committee. We also have made it a point to be at the CPAC events, which I think has helped the relationship feel bi-directional, right? So we've invited them into committee with us, and then we're also attending cup chats and meetings, and I think that's helped to really make sure that the lines of communication from the board and the district are open, and information is being shared in a way that feels productive and is helping us, I think, stay on top of things that are important to families.
I mean, I think we should treat this as a, what should I say, a pilot project, because if that really works out where we have a parent or someone from the community show up for the first 10 minutes, there's no reason why we can't try that out with other committees. I mean, obviously this is far more, there, we can think about that. I mean, again, it's open to the board and we can plan something out.
Yeah, I think we have good examples of how we've made that happen this year. I think inviting the parents to help thought partner on the stage, and what that looks like, and planning for that is a good example of how we've invited parent engagement into a variety of different things in the board. And I think, yeah, these are both two good models of how we can kind of structure that type of collaboration. Yeah, great, thank you.
Next is, Sarika.
I just wanted to thank Mr. Bing for scheduling the special services presentation for October 15th. And I have gotten a lot of questions just about this particular consultant and the work. So I just wanted to just provide a little bit of history. We had a federal audit of our special services department, which concluded last year. And during the district goal setting process, we as a board, and actually our newer board members, you weren't even on the board yet, but you participated in that process of saying we need to look at this at a deeper level than even what came out of the federal audit findings. So back in November, there was a resolution. We spent $43,900 on bringing in a consultant to make sure that we could identify the challenges and basically create a blueprint going forward. And what I'm really excited about is that we do have an assistant, the new assistant superintendent of special education, who will help us set those clear goals and help us move forward. I'm very eager to hear the audit presentation from the consultant, and I just want to thank you because I know it's hard from a scheduling perspective.
Personnel committee?
The Personnel Committee met on Tuesday, September 24th at 6:40 p.m. In attendance were Board Member Vadlamani and myself, and Mr. Adedoyan and Mr. Bing from the district. The public-facing minutes are posted on the website, but just a few highlights to share. Already got the introduction, but our part-time interim BA, welcome Mr. D'Andrea, and thank you for taking on this work. The full-time BA position has also been reposted on NJ ASBO. For those that are not aware, that is the NJ Association of School Business Officials. The district will start to bring in candidates for first-round interviews as applications come in. Mr. Adedoyan discussed year one updates to the 5-year diversity workforce plan. He shared he's progressing well against the goals and the timelines. He shared he has selected a vendor for the survey, which was related to the goal to conduct a needs assessment, targeting October, November-ish for launch. Cost is around $13K with the possibility of going up to $15K. These costs have already been baked into the access and equity budget. We had another discussion around the 2 co-lead guidance positions. I had expressed concerns around having 10-month employees in this role as scheduling requires work over the summer. We discussed the possibility of bringing the Director of Guidance role back, and Dr. Gilbert had to miss the meeting for other matters, but Mr. Bing explained that it's not off the table. Dr. Gilbert is exploring how this role can be brought back, can be possibly reimagined so that scheduling doesn't fall on one person as it has in the past, which also includes better utilization of power scheduling in Power School and more cross-training across staff members. Everything else was confidential, so we can't really discuss. Any questions?
I'll go next for the FFT committee minutes. We met on September 18th. It was Dr. Telesford, Ms. Callahan, Board Member Meyer, and myself for the meeting, along with the administration. The first thing we spoke about was construction updates, which actually the presentation that you just saw, and it was pretty nice to see that, because it's nice to see projects that started off 2-3 years back and have actually been completed, and they look fantastic, and they've been used. I mean, I think that's probably the most important thing. One question that came up, which we had to clarify, was the state of bathrooms in the Marshall Elementary new wing. And, I mean, we've been told that they've been open, they're available, and the presentation, I'm not sure about how the ultimate usage of the bathroom is left to the school itself. So that's where it is. We spoke about Ritzer Field. We have all the paperwork given out. We're expecting a reply from them in about March to June of next year. Long-range facilities plan. So now this is, every 5 years, we're required to do a brand new long-range facilities plan. The last one we did is expiring now, which is what we put the bond out for, and we did the construction. So let's name this thing as Long-Range Facilities Plan 2024. So what will happen is the architects and the project managers go through every school that we have and write down a list of things that are required and upload it into the DOE website. And that becomes our template for what we need to fix in the next round of the facilities plan, if we choose to. We can go cherry pick. We can say we want to do these 5 things together, prioritize, or maybe choose to do nothing. But by law, we're supposed to follow the process, and it will get done by the end of the year. We spoke about the Underhill complex, where we wanted, there was talked about tightening up security, get more cameras, get more motion detector things, and also limit the use to, from, I guess, very early in the morning to like late dusk, and make sure that when students are present, nobody else should be there. Because right now it's an open facility for the entire community, and there are a lot of private companies that are coming there and using that for their own, boot camp or boxing training sessions. So that was the main thing. Status of the business office, we have the interim BA, which is great. Hiring is proceeding for a full-time BA, and a new assistant BA is starting shortly. The budget timeline will be finalized in coordination with the interim BA shortly and presented to the community. Transportation, we had a bunch of questions on transportation, and one of the issues that Mr. Bing brings up all the time is that we do not have any standard operating procedures for many processes. So therefore, this was already one of them, where a lot of Google Sheets were used to schedule things, especially students with IEP, and then when data does not get transferred over correctly, there isn't appropriate support for them on the transportation side. All these minutes are, of course, on the website, and you can see that. And I'm just kind of skipping down to the next thing. We're starting a new project for Yonder, which is basically, a lot of parents have expressed desire that middle school, and obviously not elementary school, but middle school children should not be carrying cell phones in the classroom. One way to kind of handle that is to have Yonder, which is like, if you've ever been to a concert and seen it, it's a plastic pouch with very strong magnets, and they lock it in. You can leave it either at the door or some safe place, and then at the end of the day, they can always unlock it and take it back with them. It's going to cost us about $28,000 for about 500 pouches and lock stations, and this is a pilot. And once it works well, we can expand it to other schools. We had policies, first read and second read. We had a few things that we went through, emergency and crisis situations. This is actually, a lot of has gone back for updates from security, and there was no other new business. That's pretty much it for FFT. Happy to take questions.
It's okay. So I just want to clarify, in public speaks, and I apologize, I can't remember who it was, they mentioned that there is another bill coming for the scheduling consultant. Is there truth to that? Do we know what's going on with that?
I had understood that comment as suggesting we would have to do the same thing again next year. I'm not aware of.
Oh, sorry, I thought, oh,
All right,
okay.
to clarify,
I didn't,
I
yeah, I
don't know,
didn't interpret it as that, but if,
I don't know of any bill coming up for any other scheduling
okay.
person right now.
Yeah, I guess that was the question, because I had that down too. It said that the master schedule was actually 84,000, so I guess the question is there another invoice forthcoming for the work from GEM Solution, so that the total amount is 84 versus what we're all aware that was spent of 42? So, sorry, 80, yeah, 40. So is there, okay, all right, thank you.
I just wanted to, a quick call out here. One piece, it's a pretty small piece, but that we discussed is that we had some movement in the pay schools system. For those of you who put money on for your kids' lunches, the district made a change last year to a new system for doing that. And one piece that the system did not have last year was a way to restrict what purchases your child was making. And so for those of you like me who are being put out of house and home with sonship purchases every day, there is now an option that has been enabled so that you can put limitations on. It was enabled, I think, on the day of our meeting last week, and you can go to the Pay Schools website and set up those meal restrictions if you so choose. Small wins.
Any other questions? Policy Committee?
Policy Committee. The Policy Committee met on September the 11th. We had myself, Board Member Whitletter, and we had a cameo from Board Member Callahan. Thank you for joining us. In addition to Superintendent Bing, our new liaison, Ms. Jessica Maria, joined us, as well as our amazing administrative secretary team. We addressed a few things in policies. First of all, there are 3 policies that are up for first read tonight. 5537 regarding service animals, 5350 regarding student suicide prevention, and 5610 suspension. All 3 of these are iterative updates that are putting in place updated language from the Strauss-Esme, our vendor, in light of changes to the law. Nothing really significant here to report, except I will note that in the service animal policy, we've introduced an entire new section on miniature horses that is pursuant to the law. So ponies and full-size horses are not included in that definition. Also in the policy committee discussion. Yeah. It's individual needs. The policy committee's definition was recently expanded to include a governance scope, and we spent a little time discussing what that governance scope looked like as far as recommending best practices for board operations and embarking on next steps to look at what other districts do in that regard, recommendations from the New Jersey State School Board Association, and what our next steps will be as far as the operation of the committee. One big piece is that we had discussed ways that we could change and modify procedures for these meetings to make sure that they are efficient, they're of most use to us, to the community, and that they keep them within one calendar day is one ideal. So we have a questionnaire out with certain ideas, a lot of them that Superintendent Bing had identified, and we're waiting to hear back from the board and hope to develop some of those. And everything else you can feel free to check out in the policy committee minutes on the website. But I will stay here and talk about the data committee as well. Oh, I guess we can have questions first.
Sorry to have had to miss that meeting, but I was wondering in the discussion about governance and the scope of committee work and everything, if there was any further discussion about perhaps bringing the student reps into either a policy committee or any other committees like we had started discussing at the retreat.
It's a good question. We had some discussion on that for sure. We have a policy that does actually discuss incorporating student board members into committee work. And as was discussed, I think Board Member Duvall-Wilson at the retreat, there was a discussion recently with the State School Board Association about ways to bring in our student board members. Later on this evening, we will be tackling, among our resolutions, is our approved board goals for the 24-25 school year. One of them is consideration of a committee that is focused on the needs of students and families and pulling in a lot of pieces of our district operations that directly impact students, and that absolutely incorporates the concept of bringing in the student reps. So I think that is definitely something we want to look at and consider going forward.
Sorry, I just have a couple comments and then just a few questions. So I want to focus on Regulation 5124, the internal student transfer waitlist regulation, which has been in draft form for a few months. Because at this point now, the board has heard from parents about their experiences with hardship transfers and getting on waitlists at specific schools that has occurred over the last few months. I feel, and I shared this feedback with Mr. Bing, that the regulation in and of itself lacks detail, particularly explaining the process, the guidelines for submitting hardship requests, timelines, and required documentation. I've encouraged the district, and I know you did as well last year, Regina, to review how other integrated districts are handling hardship and waitlist policies. I sent materials to Mr. Bing today for Cambridge Public Schools because they've been an integrated district for 40 years. They clearly define what a hardship is, and they outline the process for all stakeholders so that there's transparency. And in our next policy meeting, I would like to have a conversation like, when do we feel like this is going to get to a position where it can be presented to the community? And then this month, I've also asked Mr. Bing just for clarification on the district's hardship parameters. So how are we defining it? And one of the things I've been curious about is whether socioeconomic status has been a factor in the hardship decisions. For me, I personally don't believe that your SES should disqualify a family from having their hardship reviewed. When you look at what Cambridge Public Schools does, they review each hardship case on a case-by-case basis, and the focus is solely on what's in the student's best interest. SES is not considered when determining a school transfer. SES is only considered when they're determining which school the child will be transferred to, because just like here, we want to maintain integration balance. So I hope that going forward, we can see some of this information in the transfer waitlist regulation. And then just regarding the implementation of the regulation, I did have a couple policy process questions. Earlier this month, I expressed some concerns to the district about the FFT committee's involvement in reviewing student transfer appeals in their August committee meeting. FFT members were given access to student and family information and made final determinations on student transfer appeals. I know of at least one family whose request was denied by the FFT committee. So I do have 3 questions. Why was FFT involved in this administrative process? How many transfer appeals did FFT review in August? And why wasn't the full board notified of FFT's involvement? Our district policies and processes on student placement and transfer appeals should never involve the board. We've known this for a while now. So I'd really like to understand why that occurred, but then also, just like Cambridge Public School does, recommend considering forming a hardship appeals committee that's made up of neutral staff to handle cases like this. And the materials I sent will cover that, but it would be good for neutral parties to be looking at these things. And yeah, I'm just curious why that happened, and I just want to make sure that that does not happen again.
We didn't discuss any family. I brought one of the examples of what the hardships have been looking like. So I wanted to inform FFT of this is what we've been receiving. And I think we also talked about getting data off these, meaning how many hardships are we receiving, if they're being denied, what are the reasons for being denied. We really talked about protocol, didn't talk about any family. I simply shared that, especially being a new superintendent, I'm getting these across my desk on a regular basis. These are the reasons that I'm getting, so we need to accumulate that data and really figure out you know, where we want to go.
Can that data be shared broadly with the board? Because we haven't seen that.
A&E is currently putting that data together.
Oh, I thought you guys looked at it in August.
No, the talk was that we're going to start collecting that data.
Oh, okay.
Because it was a request from one of the.
So, and unfortunately, this family, I don't know how many, and that's why I'm asking, but they forwarded me the email where it said, this is going to go to the table, this part of this transfer appeal, it would go to FFT for determination. Literally, it's in writing, we're meeting on August 20th, then it says, we met last night, I'll call you, and it's a whole back and forth that FFT made this final determination. And I just want to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
No, I shared my final determination with FFT.
Just to clarify, it did not happen, so it cannot happen again. It never happened in the first place, so just clarifying that it never happened, so it's unlikely to happen again, right?
No, but I could see the confusion. So I shared my decision with them and went over the hardships in regards to here are the trends and patterns that I'm getting, and we need to start collecting this data. Nobody was involved in decision-making. It was just an example to see that this is the data that's coming over my desk. I think we need to be collecting it so we can be more informed.
Okay.
Well, and I think it does tie in quite well with the Cambridge. Yeah.
Just hearing all this makes me realize that we really need to explain to the community how this works, because there's just so many info gaps, and of course, there's a lot of sensitivities related to trying to get a transfer, being on a wait list, and I think to Caitlin's point, the regulation is so important. I know, Mr. Bing, we've talked about trying to do, I love that you love your town halls.
I also think an upgraded website will make a big difference.
Upgraded website, having an
yeah.
annual town hall to explain to parents what this process is, because we have so many new parents coming in, and they don't know what they don't know, and it's a sensitive topic, and even as for new board members coming on and understanding what that process is. And so I think being able to do something on an annual basis, having a better website, and getting that regulation finalized with the things that Caitlin, glad it's already on Mr. Bing's radar, is really important, so that we know that this is going to work, right?
Any other policy questions? Okay. Moving on to data committee. We had our quarterly data committee convened on September 16th. In attendance were myself, board members Eckert, Callahan, and board president Tellisford, as well as numerous folks from the district. We discussed several of the upcoming data presentations and our protocol for how we are highlighting data, making sure the most salient pieces are being produced to the public, making sure the board has an opportunity in advance to review, and also highlighting some very helpful community contributions as far as their observations of our data and making sure that we are taking those into consideration. We also spent a lot of time talking about sort of one led to the other, our overall procedures and our growth areas for data tracking. We collect a whole lot of data. Many parents might have received today the long list of different evaluations that we use for students every year. But taking that data and actually digesting it and using it and making it available to staff is something that we could definitely do a better job on. We discussed the Link-It database system, which is being rolled out right now and is supposed to be really remarkable at being able to digest lots of different pieces of data, different assessments, and create actionable information for school leaders and teachers to be able to understand trends in classes, trends in school, and with particular students.
We had our first workshop yesterday for district administration.
Fantastic. Great.
They came in, an hour-and-a-half workshop showing them the features of it, and their data for the NJSLA was already uploaded.
Magnificent, yeah. So there's a lot of detailed discussions of this in the minutes. Encourage folks to take a look through. So we discussed how that system was working, what the rollout would look like year by year. We also discussed other systems that are in use in our district, number one being Power School, which is usually the hub of the functioning of our district, for better, sometimes for worse, which often relates more to the way that we use and know how to use all the pieces of the software than its abilities. One piece involves the degree to which we're sucking in data from other systems, such as IEP information, transportation information, aid information, so that that can be adequately used in doing things like planning bus routes. The discussion of ad hoc systems that have been used in the past, different Google Sheets that people create. You lose a person, you lose all that person's Google Sheets, et cetera. And making sure that we are instead adopting standard operating procedures and using the systems that we have and that we're paying for to best effect. A component within PowerSchool, the Power Scheduler, which is used, or ideally should be used, in creating the schedules. We discussed this in the context of the difficulties that were had at CHS this year, a lot of which had to do with suboptimal use of Power Scheduler in the past in our creation of schedules and our dedication to moving forward fully using this software tool that has the ability to actually track classes, make sure that the classes are correct, not double booked on top of each other, triple booked on top of each other, as well as the graduation planner piece of the tool, which will ensure that students are scheduling classes that are correctly accruing their classes and credits toward graduation. This is a piece, it's sitting there, it's in the software, it is apparently a real bear to get set up. And for that reason, it had not been fully used, but moving to that place so that we have better schedules for students and a better overall plan working with our guidance staff. Again, more info on that in the minutes. We talked about the TransFinder system, which we've recently taken on, and that's what we're using for transportation going forward. Again, all the features of that software that we're getting up to speed on using, the degree to which that can take information from PowerSchools and put it in and other systems so that we do have a fully connected place and we're not manually copying pieces of data back and forth, because that has been, I think, the default standard operating procedure in lack of an actual defined plan. So, and lastly, Systems 3000, which is the system we use for our financial tracking and our personnel tracking, which we've discussed it's well-known, it has a lot of features, it is fairly ancient in its architecture and its abilities, and would be very difficult to move off of it, but we could find some growth opportunities if we did look at other systems. So we put a pin in that. Certainly we have to wait until we have a new business administrator full-time on staff, but keeping an eye on how we can, again, create opportunities for automation, connecting our systems, not having all these siloed buckets of data. Any questions? Okay, thanks.
Okay, the Curriculum and Instruction Committee met on September 19th at 6:30 p.m. All of the board committee members were in attendance, so that was great. We started out by discussing the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act resolution, and we talked about providing the anti-bullying resolution to the delegate assembly. We're asking them to take a position on our resolution and then move it on to our assembly members. Our goal is to get the state's attention, get our assembly people to bring it up with the state to further help New Jersey schools get the ABR funds. Board member Deval Wilson handled moving this along according to the timeline. Thank you for that. And board member Will Meyer will attend the delegate assembly meeting. And also just thank you to Anti-Bullying Task Force Chairperson Shannon Cuttle and Essex County SBA President Reggie Bledsoe for their guidance. We had a robust discussion about the CHS student schedule. The district provided us with a timeline of the scheduling process that took place from January of this year. We reviewed the challenges of the rollout in the context of what was not a typical period of time for CHS. And while our current staff worked hard to address scheduling issues over the summer and a week into the school year, we offered our appreciation, and we were reassured that the process will only be smoother moving forward. Some key changes to practices to help make that happen include Power Scheduler training for all counselors, CHS admin, Dr. Correa, Ms. Bodner, And this is actually a critical step in moving away from the manual process that had existed for creating the schedule. And now there's standard operating procedure, and the district will produce a scheduling timeline so everyone is clear on what to expect and when. We received an update on the professional development taking place. Administrators received an introduction to Linkit, as Mr. Bing mentioned, our new data warehouse. There are also several access and equity related trainings such as anti-bullying, HIB, and dating violence, just to name a few of them, because there are a lot going on. Regarding the budget, the district's ARP funds have been spent down to zero, and they're almost finished spending Title I and II funding. A couple of recent purchases to highlight are gifted and talented supplies for teachers, as well as supplies for a new PE option at CHS that will be available next semester, gardening and horticulture. So purchases for this class include a shed and hydroponic carts, to give another option to students who may not be as into the current options. There's some items for Board of Ed approval tonight. Enhancements to the K-12 fine arts curriculum, the annual list of field trips presented in advance, although not all of those destinations will necessarily be used this year, and the policies that Board Member Meyer mentioned on curriculum content, suicide prevention, and suspension. No policies for second read that are C&I related. And in new business, we reviewed our tracker for any outstanding questions from the board, discussed the wins for the month. There's a lot of good happening, such as ELA curriculum nights that are scheduled and will be recorded for families, the NJTSS work that's ongoing. Dr. Correa and Ms. Parcio will be presenting at NJPSA on math maturity and teen development insights and solutions. And we'll meet again on October 7th. Any questions?
Sorry. So this is a question more about process, communication, I think, across all committees. But just going through the CNI and FFT meeting minutes from May through August regarding the CHS scheduling consultant, there was no reference or discussion about this consultant in those meeting minutes, nor was there any reference to it in our closed session meeting minutes, which, by the way, for closed session meeting minutes, that's not a surprise because this wouldn't have been a confidential matter. So I just want to ask these two committees, were there any conversations about this consultant in FFT, what the costs would be to hire?
No, I'm sorry, I must stop you. I mean, we had the FFT readout. I'm sure you could have asked then, but I mean, are you asking about CNI or FFT? Or is it a general question for every committee? I'm confused.
I'll finish CNI. I'll do CNI, but what I want to know is, were the costs ever discussed for the CHS master schedule consultant in FFT? And if so, I also just would like to know why there wasn't a financial resolution brought before the board so we could vote on that. And then with CNI, like I said, I don't see any discussion. I've watched the meetings again, just did I miss something? It wasn't in the readouts. So were there updates happening in CNI about, hey, we hired this consultant, let's give a progress report, where is this going? Because like I said, we've not had board conversation about that. And for some of us, the CHS scheduling consultant and the issues, it came out of nowhere. So moving forward, I would just hope that we can all make sure we're capturing conversations in meeting minutes, that we're talking about it when we're here publicly, which is the forum for that to occur. And I think we owe the CHS families and their students an apology because that transparency did not happen. And in this case, it caused a significant disruption to these kids and their families. And lastly, I also just want to go back to the question that we asked before. So the first payment went out in early July. The work wasn't done. Did the consultant continue work in July and August? Yes or no? And is there another invoice coming? Because everyone's looking around like, I don't know, do we have another invoice? Like, did this consulting firm work over the summer and continue to work? And is there another $42,000 invoice coming? So those are the things that I hope FFT, why didn't we do the resolution? Was it discussed? Was the cost socialized? C&I, was it discussed? Were there updates, status reports? And why wasn't there more transparency with the board and the community about where we were? And then, is there another invoice forthcoming?
Well, I can start from the C&I part. At our June meeting, Ms. Bodner shared that there was a consultant working with the CHS department heads on the schedule and creating standard operating procedure for the lead counselors and assistant principals to follow in the future. They conveyed that there was a lot of work that needed to be done in a short period of time, and this person was helping with that. There was no mention of costs associated with that. Why wasn't it in the C&I notes? Well, not every detail is transcribed in the committee minutes. Instead, we provide summaries. And for Board of Ed knowledge, this had been previously shared. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but okay. And I believe the important part, at least at the time for the community, was to know that the schedule was being worked on and that there would be a return to the 9-period day with conference during the 9th period. So, and just to add, before board meetings every month, I share my readouts with the board members who are on C&I for feedback, and it's typically been quite helpful. They may suggest, emphasizing certain parts of our C&I discussions or adding in any key details, and I've always accepted those suggestions. So while we didn't have time for our committee reports to be read aloud at our June meeting, I had shared my notes with the committee and didn't receive any feedback alerting me to any essential information that hadn't been included. So this piece of information wasn't maliciously omitted, it just wasn't deemed critical for sharing at that time. The important thing that I shared was that the schedule was being worked on and what the key changes were to the schedule, because I knew a lot of families really wanted to know about the structure of the day.
So I'm sorry, what is the question again? I lost it with the CNI part.
So the question I had for FFT, were there conversations about the cost? And then why was the decision made not to bring a financial resolution to the board?
So that was not an FFT committee issue at all. That information was provided by then acting superintendent, Dr. Gilbert, to the entire board at the setting. And obviously I can't talk about the setting, but it was offered to the entire board. So claiming that it is a secret or not known is obviously not true. He mentioned it right to everyone, and I'm sure many of us have it in our notes when that happened. And that's why Dr. Telesford put out the statement to Village Green saying that the entire board was told about it. So, and then also the dollar amount does not reach the limit required for a financial resolution. So therefore it was never come up. I mean, we do this happens all the time. This is a matter of fact. This is how business is done. If it is less than 44,000, the superintendent does not need to come to the board. But he did inform us that he was hiring a superintendent, an external consultant. That is very clear.
Well, I guess I'm the only person on the board that didn't know. And I mean, I think people know me by now. If I knew, first of all, many of us didn't vote for the budget. Many of us didn't support the director of guidance termination. And if someone turned around and said, oh, by the way, we're hiring a consultant and we're hiring a consultant at $42,000, I think every single person around this horseshoe would have had a lot of questions about that. So this idea that, yeah, it doesn't fall within the parameters of the $44,000, but neither, ALV's group for our integration program, that's a resolution at $40,000. We special education audit, $43,900. Like, it's about transparency. I don't sit on FFT. I don't sit in C&I. So if it's not in the meeting minutes and it's not in the readout, we don't know. And we're all looking at each other when the scheduling is an absolute mess because we didn't even know how we got here. There weren't ongoing conversations, and maybe we could have gotten ahead of some of this, or at least been transparent with parents to say, hey, guess what? Scheduling is an absolute mess. So we're sending out the schedule, but it's going to be a nightmare, and here's what we're doing. None of that occurred. So I understand a statement went out, but I personally felt like the statement that should have gone out was an apology, not, we all knew, because if we knew, we would have been asking questions and we would have been having conversations at this horseshoe. And again, is there another invoice for $42,000 coming? Because that, right now, is there another one coming?
All right, again, clarify one more time. Nothing happened in the FFT committee. So your assertion that, oh, FFT committee knew and did not put in the minutes is absolutely not true. It was told to the entire board by the acting superintendent. And I am not responsible for everyone's note-taking abilities. I remember it clearly. And obviously, Dr. Tlesford put out a statement. So it happened. I don't know why maybe you don't remember, that's fine. It happens. I don't pay attention to everything that happens in the board minutes, but it happened, and that statement put out by Dr. Tillisford is true.
If it happened, then shame on all of us, because none of us asked the questions that needed to get asked, and no one made sure that we were getting the progress reports. No one asked about just willy-nilly spending $42,000 in an environment where we should be counting every single penny and making sure that the investments and the allocations make sense.
Cool. I'm glad we have, I'm glad we have, collective amnesia, but that's fine.
I don't want to be accused of having collective amnesia, but I take copious notes in every single committee that I lead, every meeting I'm in. I'm not going to say it didn't happen, because also at the time there was a lot going on. So I cannot with 100% certainty say that it did not happen. As a full board, it sounds like there was some committee discussion, which I'm not a part of. But I also do not have any notes going back into whatever these meetings are that we discussed about it. That said, at this point, I think we just need to really focus on how do we move forward, because, contrary to what some people might believe, that is actually a really important topic to talk about, coming off of a RIF where a budget was approved by some of the board members to eliminate this position. So we can disagree on this, but I do believe that is an important topic to be discussed as a full board in public with the community. And as Caitlin mentioned, just all of the chaos that was going around, the scheduling aspect of it, and a lot of the community members calling and emailing and showing up to public speaks, asking what the plan is. To me, and listen, leadership is hard. Leadership means owning up when something has not gone the way that it should. And I think that, as we talk a lot about trust that has been fractured, especially tonight, we talked a lot about that, that could have been that moment, but that moment is in the past. And so I just want to ensure that moving forward, that we are not, that we are just operating more transparently to the community. And quite frankly, again, I always say it, we are leaders, and part of leadership is owning up and addressing when things have gone wrong, but then addressing how are we going to improve that moving forward. So I hope that we can all commit to that.
Thank you, Regina. I agree. I don't have it in my notes. Doesn't mean that it wasn't discussed. I do take very good notes as well, but there was a lot going on. And also, I just realized, and I know I sound like a broken record, and I've talked to Arun about this, that our resolutions are not synchronized, because I always had it in my mind, 40,000, 40,000. I've had it in emails. I've heard it told to us before in meetings. And so when I see resolutions that say 40,000 is the limit, and then also 44,000 is the limit, it's confusing. And so it's confusing to the community. So we need to be better at, we get a lot of things that we read, right? Things get missed. So I want us to make sure that moving forward, if that number is 44,000 and not 40, then that our resolutions need to say that, because there have been many this year and in the past that have said two numbers in one. So anyway, I know that you and I discussed we need to move that forward to make sure that that is synchronized, and I do agree with the communication. And look, sometimes things don't get captured in notes, right? I try my best to do what I can. I actually type really fast, so that's why I was looking, because I feel like I would have said, oh, where is the resolution? But, and I did not. So I will definitely own up to that.
So I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but just to talk about some of this, you know, it is my understanding that the threshold for a board union to vote is the threshold that's above what a qualified purchasing agent is allowed to purchase, which is at that 44,000 limit. You know, after we learned more and saw the reference of invoices from this consultant, I went back and looked, and indeed, you know, in the July documents that we're provided, the board's secretary report, you can go through and look at the check register, and indeed, you know, it shows up right there on page 7 of it, which I sent around to a few board members. And you do expect every board member to go through. Man, these things are difficult to look at. They're sideways. You can't search them. This is probably, you know, it's part of our ancient data system for this stuff. It makes it a little bit difficult to actually go through and keep track of all of these. And I mean, look, you go through and you look, there are a lot of purchases that are below that $44,000 level. And that is my understanding, just how a district works, right? We give a budget to each department. This is money that you can operate the district with. And part of that is going out and getting people who are going to do work. Should we have a process of better tracking what's happening with amounts that are below what we have to do a resolution for? Maybe we should. And I think we should look at that and see if there is a way of using the systems we have to have reports so that we know what's going on, and that can be part of the cadence of our oversight role. I do want to note, I do recall it was in, I think, a semi-formal setting when it was relayed to the majority of the whole board that was assembled at that point that there was a big concern regarding the status of the schedule at CHS, that this was, I think, late spring or early summer. There had been a tremendous amount of work that just was not done, and that we were going to have to work tremendously hard over those next few months to get it in place. This had to do with notifying students of what AP classes they were going to have. There was communication out to the district on that. You know, there was an invoice that was Oprah'd and put out into the community. Right on that page 1, it says, you know, Lipton Power Scheduler, nothing in Power Scheduler. So clearly we had a lot of work to do. And, you know, among all of us in that setting, hearing that, should we have made sure to march out the next time at the Horseshoe and said, hey, everyone, this is a concern we're dealing with? You know, in retrospect, maybe we should have made sure that it was publicly more widely known. I think that there was obviously a lot of transition happening, and I am glad that it looks like most of the problems have been fixed and that our guidance staff is focused on fixing the rest and ensuring a better process next time.
Yeah, and I just went back to look at our CNI question tracker, and the only questions that were there for CNI this month were from me. And people are usually really diligent about sending me questions, so I remind you also, if questions arise, ask. I've been very forthcoming with information. You email me, I get the answer to you sometimes even before our CNI meetings. I've pasted the scheduling timeline, which also is embedded with some sensitive personnel information. But again, I would just direct your attention there because there has not been any attempt to be secretive about any information. So,
just want to respond to this comment about having to look at the bills list. So if it's on the bills list, that means it's already been paid. And I don't know about any of you, but I had no idea what the consultant, one, I didn't know we hired a consultant, but until we received this Oprah invoice, I did not know the name. So even if I go through the bills list, which, by the way, I also did after this exercise, I would not have seen Jem's solution and thought, oh, this is the master, like, so we as board members should not be weeding through bills lists and then finding random names and Googling them to try to figure out what's going on. I just want to make sure that that's something that we don't think is a new habit of the board. Yeah, and I think tonight, I don't know if the consultant was discussed in CNI, but I think with everything going on, being able to have that information in the readout would have also been helpful, just to kind of understand what happened, how we got here. But anyway, that's my last comment on this.
Cool, that's end of the committee reports. We move on to the action portion of the meeting. And this is a question actually I have for you, Mr. DeAndrea. I mean, this is your first time here doing this. It's my first time here doing this, so let's kind of figure something out. Traditionally, the BA brings up a resolution, and then we kind of discuss it, and then we call for the vote, and you record the vote. Is it how you want to do this too? Oh, excellent. So before you continue, one question I have for everyone. Anyone wants to sever any resolutions? No, I know what the hand carry.
Separate.
Yes.
Thank you.
And do you want them to first and then separate, or separate first?
Okay.
They'll still ask me to separate right now. We're going to separate.
All right.
Yes.
so we'll make that.
We don't have we'll have a separate.
You wish
Yeah.
to have someone make a motion to table or sever?
Yes, that's correct.
So how about we start with, is there a motion for anyone to sever a vote first?
We have no such resolution.
So no one's looking to sever anything?
No.
Are there any motions to table anything?
Yes.
Okay.
Resolution 4668, district goals for 2024-2025. We'd like to table that for next month.
Just 4668?
That is correct.
And that's a motion being made by you?
Yes.
I'll second it.
And I apologize, I just got to find names. So that's motion and second by?
Yeah, that's, you do.
And you are Wilson. And these aren't alphabetical, so I apologize. And why don't I see your name?
Duval Wilson.
Duval.
Or just put Wilson, it's fine.
Oh, I put the wrong one. Second. I apologize. And
I was
then-
gonna say, just put it as.
All right.
It's my nickname.
This is strictly the motion to table resolutions 4668. Board Member Callahan.
Yes.
Board Member Duval Wilson.
Yes.
Board Member Eckert.
Yes.
Board Member Gifford.
That's Gafford. No, I'm kidding. You said it right. Yeah, yes.
Okay, thank you. I needed that at 10 o'clock. Thank you. Board Member Meyer.
Yes.
Board Member Sackett Gable.
Yes.
Board Member Vadlamani.
Yes.
And Board Member Whitledger.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion to table 4668 is passed.
Just a point of order, we didn't have a discussion on that. I just thought it'd be helpful for the community to understand why we're tabling our district goals.
I apologize, you should
No,
be correct.
I'll just make a note. So in the discussion that we had at our board retreat earlier this month, we discussed these district goals, which, as a community member mentioned at the mic tonight, are beautiful. However, these are top-level goals, and we went through with the superintendent and fleshed out a large number of sub-goals that are specific, measurable, et cetera. Those are near finalization, and we intend to, I believe, have them forward for presentation and adoption at our next meeting. So I think the board is not in any way in disagreement with these goals, but we want them to be memorialized with all of the sub-goals.
So we'll move on to a motion to approve resolutions 4656 through 4670, with the exception of 4668, and we will have a separate resolution for the walk-ons that were handed out at the beginning of the meeting. So I have a motion for that.
I make a motion to pass all resolutions from 4656 to 4670 with the exception of 4668. Second. Thank you, Board Member Callahan.
Any
We
discussion?
are now open for discussion.
I just want to highlight Resolution 4659M, which notes that Dr. Gilbert and our team was able to secure state funding in the amount of $250,000 for work related to the Intentional Integration Initiative, which is a great win. So I just wanted to congratulate Dr. Gilbert and the whole team for that work, and grateful to know that the state is putting at least some money toward initiatives like this.
Echoing that, second, good job, Dr. Gilbert. I know it's a lot of work. And also, I was just curious, I agree with all of the 5 items that it's going to be put towards for integration. And I was just curious, is the money going towards our consultants to do some of this work? Have we figured, like, do we know how it's going to be allocated? Because it sounds like some of the action items which are very much needed are things that maybe our ALVS group consultants would be doing, or is this all going to be in-house? I'm just curious if that's been figured out yet.
Still a work in progress.
Board Member Sackett-Gable already did an amazing job recapping our resolution for the Assembly, for the Delegate Assembly, but I also just wanted to echo the thanks to everyone for putting this together. Thank you to the CNI team and Mr. Bing for his support and the central office staff, because there's next steps that they have to do to make sure that we get this to the Delegate Assembly by next, I think it's Thursday, whatever October 3rd is. And so same to our Essex County SBA President, Reggie Bledsoe, and our Anti-Bullying Task Force Chair and former board member, Shannon Cuddle. They all have been really wonderful and supportive, and it's great to, this is my first time having this experience doing this with so many other local leaders, and it's just nice to have people coming together and working for something that is for the greater good for the state.
Thank you.
Take the roll, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Resolution 4671. Do I have a motion for that?
We have 4671A, B, C, and...
It is
Sorry.
labeled.
Yeah, yeah.
One,
No,
A,
but,
B,
but,
C,
but
D,
for
and D.
one of them, which one would you want to sever to?
I'm going to be abstaining from a vote on B, C, and D. So if we can just
We
sever
can
A
note
from
it-
the others.
We can note it that way.
Sure.
Yeah, it can be
A
noted.
and then the others.
A through D, and just, we'll note that he's abstaining on C, B.
Abstaining on B, C, and D.
Abstaining.
So he vote for A. So should we just pull A out, take a vote first, and then do B, C, D together?
I can just note it that he
Okay.
abstained on all 3.
No
That's fine.
problem.
All right.
So I'd like to make a motion to bring resolutions 4671, A, B, C, and D. There are 4 different HIB appeals, where by voting yes, we are overturning the determination of the HIBs. Do I have a second? Board Member Eckert, second. Eckert.
Eckert, thank you.
We are open for discussion. I don't know how much we can discuss, but HIBs. Oh, okay, good. Call, please.
All right, Board Member Callahan,
Yes.
Board Member Duval-Wilson,
Yes.
Board Member Eckert,
Yes.
Board Member Gifford,
Yes.
Board Member Meyer with the abstention of B, C, and D already noted.
Yes.
Board Member Sackett-Gable,
Yes.
Board Member Vadlamani,
Yes.
and Board Member Whitlander.
Yes.
And I believe those are all your resolutions. All motions have passed.
We are now in the second hearing of individuals and delegations. Do we have any sign-ups? Sure.
Hello, my name is Jeffrey Ben. I live in South Orange. In reference to the teachers' public speaks earlier, I want to say we really need to find a way to pay our teachers better. How can you hear all those statements and not be affected? How can you hear those statements and not be worried about the future of this district? I was glad to see the superintendent talk about the tax cap and state aid. Those are very important. When the 2% tax cap was passed in 2010, inflation was 2%, and New Jersey had just had decades of 5 to 10% annual property tax increases. It made sense then, but things have changed, and there is a need for reform. Regarding state aid, I don't know if you know this, Superintendent Bing, but I was on the Board of Ed before, and I was very involved in state aid. I led our Board of Education in passing resolutions on state aid and the SOBOT and the TC too. At the time, though, our problem was different from what it is now. Now our problem is that, we get 100% of our statutory state aid target, but it's only $10 million, which is $1,500 per student. At the time, we only got 25% of what we were supposed to get, so we were under-aided. Now the problem is the state aid law itself. The problem with our state aid law is something that has gotten almost no attention, including from this board, even though we're a victim of the state aid law, despite the fact that I've tried to raise awareness of it. The problem with the state aid law for our district is that New Jersey, unlike almost any other state, calculates local fair share based on a combination of aggregate income and tax base, also known as equalized valuation. Some districts have a very high ratio of income to tax base, so they end up with high local fair shares. The highest local fair shares in New Jersey are 1.8%. The lowest local fair shares, which are usually at the Jersey Shore, are only 1%. The state average is 1.3%. We're at 1.6%. Because we have a very high local fair share, we have to pay $20 million more than a district would if it had the average local fair share. And that deprives us of $800,000 of equalization aid. So instead of getting $800,000 in equalization aid, we get zero. Imagine if we had another $800,000 in the budget. That's over $1,000 per teacher. What this district what the board should do is it should pass resolutions on the unfairness and irrationality of the local fair share calculation. You should find alliances with other districts. Rural districts are often hurt by this, and suburbs of Philadelphia are often hurt by this. That's something you should do at the New Jersey SBA. Anyway, as important as state, you could also lobby for extraordinary aid to be fully funded. Extraordinary aid, unlike K-12 operating aid, is I think funded at 60% or 70% of the statutory target. And since we do have high OOD tuition, we could also benefit from that. As important as state aid is, and I hope you take that up, it's not an excuse to not look at our own budget, things which are directly under our control. Our pre-K busing is extremely expensive in per student terms. I got the numbers for last year. You had 139 kids assigned to 13 bus routes, and 6 of those 13 bus routes were untiered. So we're spending sometimes tens of thousands of dollars per pre-K student. And when we have so many needs in the classroom, I think that is much better. We could rehire a head of guidance, for instance. Also, I urge you to kind of consider the fact that our enrollment is much lower than it was projected to be when the long-range facilities plan was passed, and we should find optimum uses for the additional classrooms we have, which could improve education in the district, but also help us budgetarily. Thank you very much.
Do we, by any chance, have any online second public speaks? So that ends the second public speaks. Down to any new business? Board member Whitletter?
Can we get a commitment from the negotiations committee that will stop Facebook posts about negotiations? I think what we've seen is that the district historically handles those type of communications, and what we've heard tonight from board colleagues and also from the audience is that, these posts are doing more harm than good. And so if we want to change the narrative, we have to change behaviors, and I just would like a commitment from negotiations that the Facebook posts will stop.
I know that, the intention is transparency, but I do think that, it's poking a bear, and I think that it does threaten the integrity of our negotiations, and so we should, really allow the board president and Mr. Bing to speak for us.
Just a point of order, I think the comments are well received, but it's an open discussion. Is there a format within new business for a discussion like this?
New business is reserved for items that need to be acted on immediately. That's what it is. I understand that it's more of a comment at this point. It's not really something to be acted upon. So the committee certainly can take that under advisement.
Any other new business? Seeing none, I'm supposed to read something. Hang on. The Board of Education will meet in public session on Tuesday, October 15th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. in the District Meeting Room, 525 Academy Street, Maplewood, New Jersey. Immediately following the opening of the public session, the board will move into a closed session in the Superintendent's office, 525 Academy Street, Maplewood, New Jersey, as well as using online video conference platform to discuss personnel matters within the attorney-client privilege, legal negotiations, and other matters that may arise and require discussion to be announced at a later date. Immediately following the closed session, the Board of Education will meet the public session, estimated to be 7:30 p.m., in the District Meeting Room, 525 Academy Street, Maplewood, New Jersey, in person, utilizing an online video conference platform, which will include hearing of individuals and a presentation from Mr. Patrick Kenoy regarding the special education audit. The community can view the meeting by following the steps which shall be listed on the agenda. Action will be taken. That concludes our meeting. It's 10:17 p.m. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn today's meeting. Second, Board Member Eckert, all in favor? Excellent, thank you.